Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and my book review of Devolution. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Devolution or De-Evolution. I'm still not sure how to pronounce the name of this book, by Max Brooks. I'll show you here. I don't actually have the physical book. I read it as an ebook, so I can't show you the actual book that I have. Just a few things to go over before we get into the actual review portion of this book review. Obviously written by Max Brooks. I knew the name. He also wrote World War Z. I haven't read World War Z, but I have seen the movie. It's a really good movie. I really enjoy it. Totally recommend it to anybody out there who hasn't seen it. He also wrote the Zombie Survival Guide, which I actually have read. That one I think I read maybe about 12 years ago. Oh my god, that seems like such a long time. But yeah, about 12 years ago I read it. It was a really good book, very interesting. Another great read as well, if you want to know how to survive the zombie apocalypse, if it ever happens. Which I'm guessing, now that I think about it, since he wrote both books, I'm assuming, I don't know which one came out first, but the Zombie Survival Guide would go along with World War Z, because they're obviously surviving a zombie apocalypse. He also wrote some other books that I looked up when I was doing a little bit of research on him. Like a couple of Minecraft books. There was another survival guide. I can't remember what the name of that one was. The interesting thing that I learned was, I heard this from a friend of mine, as well as I saw this on his Wikipedia page. He is the son of Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is a comedian, an actor, a director. Like, he's an amazing guy. I had no idea. Like, I didn't make that connection. The last name was there. I just never made the connection from Mel Brooks to Max Brooks. But yeah, so that when I learned of that, oh my god, I was like, no way. No way. Like, are you serious? So that was a really, really interesting thing to learn. This book was released in COVID times, 2020. So I'm just about 4 years off from its release date. So it's still a rather new book. Not completely new, but still new-ish. Generalization of the book, just to give you a quick heads up in case you don't want any of the spoilers that's going to come in my actual talking of the book. This is a story that was based around an actual geological event that took place in history, of the eruption of Mount Rainier over in Washington. Yeah, in Washington. It's kind of written, it's not written in a traditional style of where it's just like, oh, I am doing this, I am doing this, written in the first person and everything, going through the entire story. It's written in a type of like journal or diary style, similar to if you've read Bram Stoker's Dracula or the Princess Diaries books, where it's literally journal entries. You're reading what has already happened rather than it happening at the time. They're just retelling what has already gone past in a sort of first person kind of way. There are times where it's like, okay, yeah, a few days have passed in the journal entries, so they have to tell you what happened in those past couple of days, but it still flows really nicely. It still follows the same flow of a normal book. You just have to like think of it as you are actually reading a diary or a journal from a single person's perspective, from the perspective of Kate. Oh, what was her last name? Oh, I just know Kate. I don't. McCrae. Kate McCrae. Yeah, because her brother's name was Frank McCrae. So it's not just a straight journal. It also like ties in interviews that were done like after the fact, that came from her brother Frank McCrae, some of the national park peoples that were searching to try and find anybody who might have gotten lost or stuck, I should say. I don't know how to say that. Stuck in the ash, or I learned a new word in this book. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Lahar? L-A-H-A-R. It's a mudslide, but from a volcano that came off of the volcano when it erupted. So they were looking for people in there and things like that. So they're telling what happened, as well as some scientific reports of Bigfoot. Because that's what this book is about. It's about the possibility that what happened in this community of Green Loop, that's what they called the community, Green Loop, that when Mount Rainier exploded, it sort of pushed out the Bigfoot population into the path of these humans that were kind of living off the grid, but not really, because like they had like an unholy amount of technology around them where they can get like their Amazon deliveries still to drop off their groceries. The houses they were living in were like crazy high tech, where you could control it all from an iPad and everything, where it would take like your waste underneath into like something they called a biotank at the bottom. I believe it was called a biotank, where it would basically like recycle methane gases. That was the one big thing that they always kept talking about. It was always trying to basically like green living. Green living is what they were really pushing in this community. And this community was about like 11 people. Yeah, about 11 people. Large. Size. Big. Whatever the word. There was 11 people living here. Which I will go over in the actual review of this, so that in case you want to read it, I don't spoil anything. That was another thing. There was a lot of green energy talk that was kind of like, I don't know if it did it for anybody else, but like when I was reading it, it was like, okay, yes, you have all this money, you can live like this, you can implement all of this technology into your house and stuff, have all these solar panels, all this stuff hooked up to being just, like I said, used from an iPad or whatever. It's like, you get it, you have a lot of money. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has access to that kind of technology. So it's kind of little, I don't want to say cringy, but it was something. The other thing that Kate wrote about in the journal, her journal, that's what this is basically. It's just her journal in a book form, so that people can know about what her and the people of this Green Loop community went through after the eruption of Mount Rainier and the eventual encounter with the Bigfoots. Big feet? Bigfoot. What's the plural of that? I don't know what the plural of Bigfoot is. So, looking at it as a journal, I'm surprised that there were not a lot of grammar mistakes. Because like I kept notes. I kept notes while I was reading it. So yeah, like when I was reading, I would write down, okay, this is something I kind of want to remember, or might want to talk about during this review. So I made a little note about it. And there's a part right here where I was keeping track of the grammar mistakes. Basically, like if they used the wrong word or something, or a word I feel like didn't fit in that spot. And if you saw them, there was only one mark. There was only one mark. Mostly because once the action really got going, I kind of forgot to keep track. But the other reason was because I finally realized it's a journal. It's pretty much written in somebody's handwriting. So if there was a mistake there, they would leave it in. Because I know, I write in a journal. I do write in a journal. I have my own journals. I have a whole lot of journals. There are plenty of mistakes. Either I scratch those words out, or I miss a letter somewhere in a word or something. There are a lot of mistakes. So to find that there were not a lot of mistakes in that book was really surprising. But again, like I said, I ended up not paying attention to the mistakes after a while, because once the action starts going, you're like, okay, oh my god, I gotta keep reading. Like, I gotta keep reading. So that was nice, just not see so many mistakes that would take me out of the story itself. That was a really good thing. Okay, now moving on to the actual review of the story. This is where all of the spoilers are going to come in. So, like I mentioned earlier, this community of Green Loop was inhabited by 11 people. Tony and Yvette, I don't remember their last names, but it's Tony and Yvette, were the main couple who were running this. I can't even call it a facility. I'll just keep calling it a community. And they were the ones who were like saying, yes, you guys can come, you guys can stay, and everything like that. They were the ones who were trying to like make this community work so it could prove to everybody outside. I have to say on the outside, because they were basically kind of like on an island. They were on an island with like one road leading to and from the actual continent of the United States. It wasn't that far out, like away, because obviously they had to be near enough to Mount Rainier for it to affect them. But it was still off to the side to where they can say they were living off the grid. They didn't want to be part of the city life. That's what they were trying to get rid of. That's what they were trying to get away from. But at the same time, they still wanted all their luxurious amenities and everything. Like I said, everything being controlled from an iPad. So yeah, the heating of the house, lighting, controlling the lights of the house as well. In case you wanted to have like music in one room, but you're in another room and you're walking that way, you could turn it on as you're going to the next room. Things that like everyday people would kind of find as like everyday things. I don't know how else to explain it. Like we got so used to like all of this technology, it was a shock for them when they didn't have it anymore. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, there's Tony and Yvette. They run the community. The two main characters are Kate and Dan. I don't know if her last name is still McCrae. I know her brother's name was McCrae, but since she was married to Dan, I'm not sure if it's still McCrae. Whatever. But yeah, they're the two main characters, I suppose, of this. It's really just from Kate's perspective, but obviously since Dan's her husband, he's a main character as well. And when they get to Green Loop, they don't have a great relationship. It's a rocky relationship because Dan was basically like this really high-tech guy who had this brilliant idea, yet when he presented it to somebody, to like a board, or it doesn't really go into details, but basically when he presented his idea, nobody wanted to go for it. So it kind of like left him in this defeated state. So he was unemployed, didn't really have any job prospects or anything like that, and that just really kind of affected him. And in a way, it made Kate like secondhand embarrassed for him because of that. So that whenever anybody asked him like, oh, what do you do for a job, he didn't really have an answer, and she would feel very self-conscious about that, because being married, it's like, oh, that reflects on me as well. There was also Effie and Carmen, who had a daughter. Effie and Carmen were psychologists, child psychologists, I believe. And their daughter's name was Pal, or the nickname was Pal. Her full name was Palomino, that they kind of adopted from like a third world country. I don't remember if it mentioned which country it was, but basically they said it was a war-torn country, I guess I should say. They said they went there, they saw her looking really sad, kind of with all of the other orphans who were orphaned due to war or disease or whatever it was that was ravaging their country, and they're like, we're taking her with us. Which I thought was rather odd, because I was like, okay, yeah, you might have thought you saved this little girl from this fate of being an orphan or whatever, but who's to say like her mom wasn't still out there somewhere, or her dad was still somewhere out there looking for her and everything, and you're just like, oh, she looks sad, we're gonna take her with us. So that was just my opinion of them. It was kind of strange, and I don't know, like the little girl never talked. She never talked throughout the entire book, never uttered a single word, and I was like, okay, either she saw something very traumatic that just took all speech away from her, or she's just like, I don't know this language. Because if she did actually come from a different country, it's like, I don't speak English, and you just took me away from the only other people that I know speak my language. So that was an interesting family dynamic there. You also had Bobby and Vincent, who were like an older retired couple. They were just living in this place to like, again, get away from the city life and everything like that. There was also a man named Reinhardt, again another name I'm not really sure how to pronounce, who right off the bat, like I literally cannot stress this enough, as soon as he starts talking, as soon as he opens his mouth, he sounds like a pompous know-it-all. That's just how he comes off, being like, oh yeah, I know about this and this, and like, oh, you don't know about this? Like, oh, okay, yeah, well, Oh well, it's just... He sounded like one of those people who just needs to be punched in the face. The final person of the entire community, his name was Mostar. Mostar? Or Moster? I'm not really... Again, this one I know is from a different country. It's implied a lot and actually said in one of the interviews that's added in there that Mostar is from a different country. That I want to say it's from... She's from Bosnia, or the Bosnia region. And I'm going to mispronounce this country. Herzegovia? I believe that's it. They're always linked together, Bosnia and Herzegovia. I want to say that's how it's pronounced. Because they said she took the name of the city that was destroyed in her country. And I googled where Mostar was, and that's where it came from. Herzegovia. I want to say I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, somebody in the comments please correct me. She's an artist from that war-torn country. I think that happened in the 90s, I want to say. It happened late 80s, early 90s that happened. So she comes from there. And these are all the people that are mentioned throughout the entire book. Some come and go. Others are there all the time. Things happen. When the story first starts off, it's basically Kate and Dan are moving into their little house in the Green Loop community. Her brother had told her about this place because he had been there with his husband, and he was saying, okay, well, maybe this will help with your husband, so you can try and living here. Maybe getting away from the city is what will help bring you guys together and everything. So they decided to try this. And one of those first nights that they were there, like, a welcoming dinner was had. Everybody was basically talking, saying like, okay, I do this, I do this, I do this. That's how I found out that Effie and Carmen were psychologists. Reinhardt, I want to say, is a sociologist, but I'm not entirely sure. He does have a lot of books and talk a lot about sociological stuff. Obviously, Tony and Yvette had to welcome them in. This is like the moment where you see like everybody's mask. I don't know how else to phrase that. Basically, the mask that everybody wears in public. They're public mask. I don't know how else to say that. Because this is the moment where somebody asks Dan what he does, and where Kate gets that feeling of like, oh my god, embarrassment, that Dan has to now say, oh, I don't do any work, I don't have a job or anything like that. And then that's where she gets embarrassed. But other people try and make it seem like, oh no, it's okay, but where you can see like underneath, they're like, oh, that's not really great, that's not good. And Tony and Yvette are the ones that wear, like, I don't want to say the biggest masks, but the most prominent, because they hold these positions of like high authority based on their wealth. I guess prestige would be the better word. Based on their wealth and the fact that they built the community, that they're so famous around the world because Yvette's a model. Tony is this high-tech millionaire, whatever, that was able to build this entire little community. And like, that's just the facade they give off. Throughout the rest of the book, that drops away. I don't know, it literally drops away. There is a moment after the eruption where Tony goes to see if there's a way out. Honestly, I think he was just trying to leave. Like, he was scared for his own safety that he just tried to leave, leaving his wife Yvette at the community. But he saw something out there. He saw something that just like rattled him so bad. Nobody could talk to him. Like, nobody could. It broke his brain. Literally, it broke his brain. And they literally just walked into their house. They walked into their house like a day after the eruption, and they weren't seen for like a good 5 days, 4 or 5 days. Okay, so obviously eruption happens. The eruption of Mount Rainier happens. The Lehar, however you pronounce that word, comes in and basically covers the road so that it's impossible to get out, to leave the Green Loop community. They said it's it's a mudslide, but like with debris and obviously like lava, or at least some kind of heated fluid from inside the the volcano itself. Something that makes it like so impassable, kind of like quicksand, but from a volcano. And they say it takes forever to dry, and it's as tough as concrete. Learned all of this. Completely new to me. Never knew it before. So that happens. The eruption takes place. Everybody feels it. They feel the ground shake, the vibration from the eruption, and it takes out the power to their houses, to their community. They are now running on backup generators that are powered by these solar panels they have on the top of their houses. The unfortunate thing with eruptions is that not only do they let out lava, eventually because of that eruption, ash is going to fall. That ash started covering the solar panels, making it impossible for them to gain the energy from the sun. So their tech starts failing. They can clean off the solar panels. Obviously, that's what they try to do to keep the power going. But there's also that big cloud that will emerge from the volcano. The cloud makes the ashes fall. And that cloud is now obstructing the sun. You can't have solar panel. You can't have power from the sun if you don't have the sun. So then that starts... That takes away that. That means they lose all of their electricity, power to their homes, things like that. So they're running on very little power. They got to start cutting off things they don't use to conserve energy. Phones don't work. Their Wi-Fi is out. They can't call in for supplies from like Amazon to have it delivered by their drones or anything, because again, no Wi-Fi, can't get on the internet, can't do anything. That is a moment where I really loved it, because it showed how much we rely on technology way too much. That it's become so much a part of our lives that once it's gone, it's like we basically forget how to live without it. It was interesting to see how they dealt with it. Like, yeah, obviously they tried to reroute power to other places that they were going to use more often than the places they weren't going to use. Tony tries to go look for help, and he comes back like totally shaken, and then him and Yvette go into their house and basically are never seen until nearly the end of the book. Mostar decides to take control because she knows that, like, when a bad situation happens, you gotta start preparing for the worst. You really gotta start preparing for the worst, because who's to say when help is gonna arrive, when the emergency services will come find this group of people who are living off the grid. Basically, to me, when you say you're living off the grid, you're by yourself. You're on your own. That's it. There is no one gonna be out there looking for you if they don't even know you're out there to look for. So she takes control, tries to get Kate to like count up how much food they have so that they can see how much they're gonna need to ration throughout the winter, because they don't know how long it's gonna be until somebody comes to look for them. So along with that, because of the eruption, again, a natural disaster that happens, it also is flushing out a lot of the animals, really, because they know something bad happens. They know bad things are happening. They need to get out of the way. So they're moving like farther away from wherever they're at, from the Green Loop community. The community is actually able to get a few, I think it's like a rabbit, I believe. Maybe a squirrel, I'm not really sure. I remember the rabbit that they can use for stew and everything, but because those animals are migrating away from Mount Rainier and the eruption and everything, obviously that's going to force other predators to move as well, because they need to eat too. And if their food source is moving, they need to move with their food source. Bring in the Bigfoots. Big feet. I still don't know the plural of that word. At first, it's like one of those moments where you see something, but your mind won't let you believe that it's true. That's what happens to Kate. She's like, okay, I literally, there's a Bigfoot right outside of my door. And she's like, no, it can't be a Bigfoot. It's probably a bear or something. But then she goes outside and looks at the prints on the floor, and it's obviously a big human footprint. And it's like, how do you explain that away as a bear? You can't. Bears and humans don't have the same footprint. But some of the others, when they tell the rest of the community, hey, this is what I saw, The other community, the community members obviously don't believe them because it's Bigfoot. How many people out there really believe in Bigfoot? I know there's a whole section of cryptozoologists that literally make a career off of researching and looking for cryptids and things like that. But like everyday normal people that with high degrees, how can they possibly believe in Bigfoot? So they basically do that to her. They're like, okay, you couldn't have seen Bigfoot. You don't know what you're talking about. We don't believe you. It was a bear. It was obviously a bear. A lot of this tends to happen where it's like, it's so in your head that they just can't make themselves believe that it is actually Bigfoot. And it makes Kate question herself as well, being like, oh, well, if they're saying it's Bigfoot, maybe sort of that community pressure type thing. It really gets to her. Great thing about it was that the Bigfoots, they start attacking their compost bins, basically where they throw all of their trash and stuff. The Bigfoots need food because their food source ran off when the eruption happened, that they start going through the compost bins of the community. And her husband actually was able to record it on camera or on his iPad, that two of the Bigfoots were fighting and everything, trying to get to the same bin. Obviously hunger was driving them to fight amongst each other and things like that. So when they show it to the rest of the community, it's like, oh, okay, this is actually happening. This is real. And it gets to the point where they all finally believe it. They all finally believe Bigfoot is real. Then they start hearing like, it's not like knocking sounds, but like if you had like a tree branch, and you were just like slamming it, I guess I could say. Slamming it against a tree, making like a thunk noise, or like even just like that, but like constantly. Basically the Bigfoots were trying to contact another portion of their group, their family, population, however you want to call it, to let them know what happened when they were in there. Because the humans are the most intelligent, dumb species on the earth, in my opinion, one of the community members, Vincent, decides, oh, if that's them trying to communicate, let me grab this piece of bamboo and communicate back to them. Not knowing what the hell that knocking actually is between the two Bigfoot groups. So he starts knocking, then like the group in the Bigfoot group in the woods is like very confused, kind of like, wait, why is this noise coming from where we just were when we're trying to contact somebody who's actually supposed to be in the forest? So it continues the sound. Vincent mimics the sound. Knocking continues. Vincent, for some reason, believes that he's communicating that we're friends. Like through his knocking, he's communicating that we're friends, not knowing what those knocks might actually mean to the Bigfoot group. Like, that's what blows my mind. How can you be so stupid to try and mimic something you know nothing about? Just saying your knocks are meaning friend doesn't mean that's what they think it is. It could mean something else to the Bigfoot group. Like, honestly, that blew my mind. I could not, like, how... For one, it gave away your position. It told everybody where you were. And for two, it could have just said, hey, we're over here, come attack us. Or, like, some kind of insult saying, like, hey, we're not afraid of you, come at us. Like, you literally invited an attack on the community, which is what happened, like, a few moments later. Because as they were all trying to go back to their own little houses and everything, rocks just started raining down on their houses. And their houses have a lot of big glass windows because it's fancy to have really big open windows and everything. But yeah, these like were really massive rocks that you needed to build, like be really powerful to pick up, let alone throw. And they were just raining down on this on the community, smashing windows, breaking doors, things like that. It got really, really crazy. But like I said, this is where the action really starts and everything. It really gets going. So the following day, for some genius reason, I don't know if he's trying to like just make up for what had happened the previous night, Vincent decides, hey, A few days have passed. Maybe the lahar is already dried that I can walk over and go get some help. Horror movie tactics, people. You never separate the group. Don't ever separate the group. Go in pairs, because obviously he could have gone with his wife, but he probably wanted to keep his wife safe, and he still wanted to search for help. I understand that. Searching for help was like paramount. They were now facing a threat they didn't know how to like deal with at all. They really needed help. These are Bigfoot woods. This is Bigfoot's forest. Bigfoot knows these forests better than you. And you think you're really going to get through there totally unharmed. Which brings us to the next big moment in the story. While they're having dinner that night, basically like trying to get the community back together, like make sure everybody's like calm, collected, and we're not freaking out about finding Bigfoot, they decide to have another dinner. Obviously still trying to keep within the rationing of the food that they have remaining. They start hearing screams. Very, very human screams. And the only human that's out there is Vincent. So from what they can see, based on where they are in their community, there's like there would be like a ridge high above their community. There was like two big feet, plural of Bigfoot, standing on that ridge watching them, trying to like see if they were gonna separate anybody from the group. Basically primate mentality, primate tactics, which is what some of the anthropological reports were talking about, which honestly that satisfied my collegiate soul, because I have a degree in anthropology, and reading those things I was like, yes, this can actually happen, like this is possible and everything. The Bigfoots were using Vincent as bait to try and lure everybody, or at least a few of the people, into the forest so that they can kill them. It was like it was intelligent. That was the thing that was insane. It was an intelligent tactic. Meaning these weren't just dumb animals trying to get food. They were methodical and thinking things out on how to kill off these people. Because whether they saw the humans as a threat or an obstacle in the way of getting to the food source, which would be the compost bins, or if they just saw humans as meat, food. That's another point I would like to bring up. Like little tangent from the story right now, but it's similar to how park rangers in national parks here in the United States don't want people to get too close to wild animals that are on these national park areas. For one, it's a wild animal that could hurt you within the park, so obviously park would be at fault. Second point is, don't walk up to wild animals in a national park. It's against the rules because you are introducing humans or human contact to a wild animal's habitat. It's against the rules for a reason. Should a person, and this has happened quite a lot that I actually cannot believe it, if a person decides, hey, I want to go take a selfie with that wild buffalo over there because it would be cool, it would get me all these likes and everything. Yeah, it'll get you all these likes, but you are also signing the death warrant for that wild buffalo. I don't know who came up with this rule or anything, but should a person get within a specific number of feet or even to touch a wild animal, that wild animal's life is basically forfeit. They are going to kill that wild animal because in a way it's not wild anymore. You interfered in its life. You made it so that the animal now believes going up to humans is okay, which is something they don't want, because then they'll be going up to humans all the time. They don't know the reason why this human is coming up to them. They might think it's a threat. They might think you're going to give them food. They might think you are food. So they don't want to run that risk of letting that wild animal continue to live with this thought in their head, so they just automatically kill it. As soon as that contact happens, the euthanization is like done. It's happened. So please, if you ever go to a national park or anything, do not. You take a picture from far away. Do not go up to those wild animals. I don't care how many likes or comments or whatever you're gonna get for taking a picture with that wild animal, because that wild animal will now be dead. you will have had the last picture of that wild animal ever. Don't do it. Just don't do it. But that's the thing. Like, now that the community of Green Loop has interacted with the Bigfoot doesn't know what you are to it now. It doesn't know if you're a threat or what. So it wants to, like, basically, I would say it would feel you out, but now since Vincent went out there, that's it. We want your spot. We're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to protect our people in the way of Bigfoot. Okay, so I mentioned already that Tony and Yvette kind of just left. They went into their house. Nobody saw them for a few days. Eventually it got to the point where the community wanted to gather into one specific spot so that they can basically keep an eye on everybody, make sure everybody's okay. They're not all spread out in different houses and everything. So they went over to Tony and Yvette's house, and when they knocked on the door, nobody really answered. It took a while for anybody to answer the door, and when Tony opened the door, he was like completely not Tony from the beginning of the book. He wasn't this very suave looking, clean cut millionaire, whatever, that was the owner and person running Green Loop community. Totally unshaven, didn't look like he had changed his shirt or clothes or anything in like a few days. It smelled in the house, or at least that's what it said. It smelled in the house. It reeked gross, nasty, like nasty. My first thought initially when that happened was that, oh great, Yvette annoyed him so much that he killed her and she's just sitting somewhere, just rotting in their house. But no, whatever Tony saw out there, whatever it was, whether he actually saw Bigfoot, something, whatever that broke his brain so badly, he just didn't want to do anything. Like depression, no showering, no shaving, didn't even go to the bathroom to use the bathroom, basically just went wherever he was based on what they saw on the couch where he was sitting, which he sat back in, which is really gross. And when they asked him about where Yvette was, he was like total disassociation, was not even there. He was not present. His mind broke that much. And eventually they heard it, the sound of Yvette's elliptical, so they're like, oh, okay, she's in there. So they went, knocked on the door, she came out, she was dripping sweat. Girl had not eaten in 4 days. She was working out the entire time because I guess in her mind that's the safe spot. If she's working out, she's good, she's okay. Her world is safe when she's working out. So that's all she did for 4 days straight, just worked out. I mean, they said she looked so starved, like you could see her bones under her skin, like she had to hold up her yoga pants because they didn't fit anymore. It was insane. And it was at that moment that the Bigfoots decided to attack again, in broad daylight. Like broad daylight. Everybody saw the Bigfoot smash through their front window and everything. And then everybody scattered. So them wanting to get together in a group, they did, but that one attack scattered them all. Some of them went upstairs, hid under his bed, which was totally nasty, like as nasty as the downstairs were. Nasty clothes and everything. Just, it was bad. I think Tony and Yvette went into her gym, which also had a garage door so they could leave if they wanted to. A couple of the others just ran out the door, like just straight up took off. And it just so happened that Tony got the bright idea that he was gonna lift up the garage door and get out. So him and Yvette did that. They escaped through the garage door, escaping the Bigfoot. But Tony decided, I'm gonna get in my car and I'm gonna take off. Yvette tried to get in the car with him. Door was locked. She couldn't get in. And she started yelling at him. At the beginning, she was British. She was this very proper British girl. When she's yelling at him right now, when she was yelling at everybody, when they were in her workout room and everything, she was apparently Australian. Basically, their masks were ripped off. This high and mighty, this pedestal they had been put on was just stripped away, and they were like literally nothing. They were nothing without all of the stuff, all of the other accolades that everybody had given them. So it's like they were just people. She was obviously yelling a lot of obscenities at him. The Bigfoot caught him. The Bigfoot caught both of them. Killed Yvette first and basically just ripped out her guts, whatever was left of them after she'd been working out so much, and did the same thing to Tony. Ripped him out of the car and just killed him right there. I think, no, Tony got his intestines ripped out. Yvette just got her neck broken. And again, all from the perspective of Kate. She witnessed all of this. This is what starts basically the final fight of the entire story. That moment right there, and what happens after that. I'm not going to tell you everything about what happens, because I want you to read the story. It's a good story. It's a good book. People die. Obviously, Tony, Yvette, some other people do die at that moment. This forces other people, or the rest of the people of the community, to fight back against the Bigfoots. Life or death situation, they start making tools out of whatever they can. The knives they have around their houses, they don't have any tools because handymen were supposed to come and fix things for them, but if you can't call out, well, you don't have any handymen. So not only are the Bigfoot community group, it's more like a family, because there's one main female Bigfoot that is like the highest tier than all of the other ones. They're just like underneath her. Kate gives them names to try and remember who's who of the Bigfoot family. They turn violent, which in turn forces the humans to become violent as well, fighting for their lives and things like that. So they create, I don't want to say bait, but an event that would bring the Bigfoots out of their hiding spots to confront the humans, but on the humans' territory and in the way the humans have the advantage. So they use the technology. They use the Bigfoot's fear of fire against them. They use the glass that was shattered from the Bigfoot's rock bombardment, I don't know how else to call that, as like a deterrent. Because you step on glass, it's going to hurt, even if you're a Bigfoot. I don't care who you are. They come up with these really primitive ways to fight back against this primitive species. It turns them primitive in a way, because the way they're going about killing them, like hand to hand killing these Bigfoots, these predators to the human race now, is just the only way I can describe it is barbaric. It is literal barbaric, something that we haven't had to do for many thousands of years. Since we've civilized, since we've created civilization, we haven't had to do that. We haven't been chased by any big cats or any bears or anything anymore, because we've civilized our world. We don't have to worry about that. But once that's all taken away, once all the technology is taken away, that primitiveness came out in these people. And they were vicious. They viciously killed these Bigfoots in order to protect not only themselves, but the people they loved. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it is a very interesting ending. It's not a cliffhanger, but an open to interpretation type of ending, because you're provided with various theories on how the story played out. Because once Kate's journal ends, it ends. The story ends there, but it doesn't say what happens next. It says how the final fight ended, but not what happened. Not what happened to Kate. What happened with the rest of the Bigfoots, the ones that didn't get killed in that final fight? What later happened? Where did they go? Where did everybody go? Are the Bigfoots back on Mount Rainier? Did they go somewhere else? Where did Kate go? Why didn't she finish the end of her journal? Why didn't she keep the journal? Obviously, we wouldn't be able to read any of this if she didn't leave the journal somewhere there. But what happened? Where did they go? Where did everybody go? I really liked that. I could say my theory, but again, it would sort of spoil the ending, and I don't want to spoil the ending. I don't really want to spoil the ending. I want you guys to read the book so that you can comment on this and tell me what your theory is on how the story ended, or how you would like the story to have ended. So now for my rating. I do have to take into account the fact that this was a rather gory book. So it does go into detail on how the people were killed. Not only the human people, but Bigfoot as well. The big feats. So if you're not a gory person or into the gore of reading, gory stuff or vicious stuff like that, this book might not be for you. But it is a really good story. It really is. I liked the science. I'm not big on science, but like I said, I did like the anthropological talk about how primitive tactics of chimpanzees and the primitive tactics of Bigfoots kind of lined up, and how they might have gotten over here to the United States, or to North America in general. So that was pretty good. Overall, I think I would say this book deserves 7.5 Bigfoots out of 10. It was a good book. It did take a while to get started at the beginning. A lot of introducing of the characters, the description of the Green Loop community, the fear that Kate experienced when Mount Rainier did erupt, and her like worrying about all the people that were outside that might have actually gotten caught in the ash and the lahar and everything like that, gave me anxiety. Like, it gave me very bad anxiety, because I do live in an area where there are hurricanes, and we have gone through a couple of hurricanes where it's taken out our power, and it's scary not knowing like what you're gonna do, because you obviously can't stay inside your house without power because it gets too hot, especially down here in Texas. Don't really have a way to cook any meals because, again, no power. We don't have gas stoves down here. But yeah, and like worrying about when those basic needs or basic luxuries, what we've come to know of as basic needs, would come back to us was just like unthinkable. Like, we didn't really know what to do with the rest of our days. Like, can't turn on the TV, can't go on the internet, can't do anything because nothing has power. That, like, it gave me anxiety, but I also understood where she was coming from, even though she said she hadn't experienced it before. So that's why I give it the 7.5. The anxiety was just too real. It was too close to home. And it also made me kind of not want to keep reading, because I was like, okay, if she's going to keep worrying about all this stuff, I might, like, I don't know if I'll be able to, like, overcome that anxiety with her to be able to finish reading this book. Okay, guys, that was it for my review. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you check out this book. This is a really good book. Again, it's by Max Brooks. I do want to check out the World War Z book. I've seen the movie, but I've never actually read the book, so I'm actually curious about that. But that being said, the next book that I'll be reading for the next book review video will be The Help. I'm very curious to read this book. I have seen the movie, just like World War Z. Unfortunately, with World War Z, I don't have the book, but for The Help, I do have the book and I do have the movie. So this is going to be the first book review that I do where I read the book, give you my review on it, and the review of how well it was translated into the movie. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, guys, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your support. I hope you enjoyed this book review. I hope I didn't give you any spoilers. And yeah, check out the books. Check out all of the books that we're reading. This one, the Devolution, before was Blackjack. If you want to leave me a comment suggesting a book that I should read, totally appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video, guys. Bye.